started. So I will take a motion for the approval of the general agenda.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And that passes. Next, we will look at the approval to accept a bid of $617,481 from CDWG for faculty Chromebooks.
And I just so you know, I'm sorry.
No, please, go ahead.
This is an example of that Chromebook. It's a lot beefier, it's a lot more powerful.
That's the faculty.
Yes, than the student ones. It's touchscreen. You have capabilities of folding
That's my
over.
favorite feature.
And you have where you can write on it and take notes. Yes, it goes to a tablet. You can write on it with your finger, that sort of take notes. You can cast it to the smart boards that every classroom has, and they can teach a lesson using this and capture notations and things like that, and cast it, that sort of thing. So it's not just it's not the Chromebook our students have. It's a lot beefier. It's a lot more. The expert over here could probably tell you more if you had any other questions. But I wanted to make that distinction because I think that there are some concerns, and I think that the mindset is it's just the typical small version of the Chromebook that our students.
These are powerful. They're made for.
And just for clarification, is every faculty member in the district getting a new one?
Yes.
Yes, so this is for every single person.
Correct.
Okay.
Every
Faculty before they get this.
Yes, everyone's getting this one.
Okay.
So.
Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay, well, we will entertain a motion.
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And that is unanimous. Next, we have the approval to accept a bid of $861,456 from CDWG for student Chromebooks.
So moved.
Any questions?
Any question? Yeah, and it's self-explanatory. 2,400 devices we're purchasing to start rotating out our older Chromebooks that we were able to purchase about 4 years ago.
Okay, so this is 2,400. So we had a motion, we have a
Second.
second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and that is unanimous as well. Our next item is the discussion of the bond issue.
So there's no, I thought this situation, essentially, and I were talking earlier about just nothing like scripted or anything. It just kind of just recapped and some things that you were hearing from people about the bond issue. Again, we had 53.78% for and 46.15% against. And so we had the majority, but didn't reach that threshold of 60%. And so I'd just like to hear some of what y'all are hearing. I'll say that I was at Summerall High School baseball game yesterday, and no less than 3 people came up and said, I just for sure it was going to pass. I mean, I thought it was going to pass, that sort of thing. So anyway.
I think I said this to you yesterday. I think if twice as many people voted, that it would absolutely have passed.
Okay. And I would agree with that.
It's kind of like we said before, if 2,845 people had decided the fate of Lamar County, then I don't like it either way.
Yeah.
I don't like it either direction. You feel like you need to get people to weigh in on that. In hindsight, I guess we should have spent the $85,000 or whatever it was of taxpayer money to not have it at the schools. I mean, people complained about we were hiding something by not having it at the schools when we, I guess we should have spent that money to do it at the precincts. That's my thoughts on it. I think when it's I love the idea of it standing on its own merit. I mean, I hate that we're quite possibly going to have to put it in with the regular election.
Some neighboring school districts
have done the same.
Put it in their regular election, and have been accused of trying to hide it sneak it in under the.
Stick it in on the presidential election.
Yeah.
And that's what I've kind of told everybody that I've talked to, that, typically with a school bond issue is that you put it out there by itself and let it stand on its own. And I thought we were doing the right thing by that, but of course we.
And that's the thing I would like to point out is that in talking to people and listening, and that's what I've been trying to do since that Wednesday. Nobody has said we don't need new schools. Everybody, it's a foregone conclusion. It was the main thing is the sites that we had the location had the funds at the schools. The other negative is the location of Summerall High School, and it being so far outside of town, which it's 4 miles. You know, those are the negative things. I don't hear anyone necessarily saying that we don't need the new facilities for our school to address some of the increasing enrollment that we're seeing now, but also the future that we're predicting to come up within the next, say, 10 to 20 years. So anyway, so I think that's been, you want to, I don't want to say just always look for the positives, but if you're looking for what we've learned from what I've learned, and what hopefully you guys have learned from this situation, is that it's not the what, it was the how. You know what I'm saying? It's not what we were doing, what we were wanting to do, it's the how we were doing it. You know, that's what it is.
Well, I kept hearing, well, not kept hearing, one of the things I heard was I didn't know about it. And I countered with, well, and I was seeing those comments on social media, which I find ironic,
Yeah.
because it was all over social media.
Correct.
Not to mention how many interviews you did with WDAM 8, I believe.
If not more,
I think that's what the reporter there on site that day told me, and then also the community meetings.
Yeah.
And if you're a parent of a child in the school district,
Yeah.
which I am, and I was inundated, which that's fine with me, but, you know, but anyway.
That's another thing I learned from this. No one supposedly watches the news or reads the newspaper. You know, they don't.
Or looks at social media.
Yeah. So.
Well, and I think that's something to address too, though. I want to address that point, that several people said, like, why weren't there signs out? Well, and I think it's important to say that we can't spend taxpayer money on signs.
We can inform, but we can't promote the bond program. Is that correct?
That's right.
Right, and so that, you know, it wasn't that we were hiding it, it was that we couldn't spend money on it.
And I guess maybe, you know, if or when we decide to do it again, you know, maybe the electronic billboards, or,
Yeah.
you
So,
know,
and
the
that-
vote will be this day.
Correct.
Right, this is what it is.
And that would be, and Mr. Norton, you kind of help me with this, because I don't want to misspeak, I don't want to speak out of, but, you know, I think that would be beneficial for us to combat some of what I would say misinformation on social media. Would be a political action committee to be able to have someone to be able to raise the funds separately outside of our school district, to be able to do more of a promotional type, informational type, that sort of thing, to move forward.
In the past, and some of you that have been here as long as I have can chime in, there were volunteer organizations like the PTOs, and the office of the PTOs created phone banks, and it's real easy to look at these numbers and realize that we have a lot of friends and a lot of supporters that didn't vote.
Correct.
Just a whole lot of them. And so that's very encouraging, because all we have to do is to get them to vote. When I look at this, I think there's several things to do. One is to involve the PTOs, to get out the vote. GoTV is an acronym for it, to get out the vote, is often with phone banks. Now it's cell phones, but it's still phone banks or social media contacts, where you identify the people that you think are favorable, and the action committee then will contact those people. And yes, I think that it's real clear that there are some issues that need to be addressed. I think in some wrong. You had a lot of people that voted percentage-wise. You had more people voting there than I think you did a vote for. But they didn't vote for it, voted against it. We have an issue in Lumberton that I talked about Anthony about, that we will address, and we have students who live in Lumberton School District that are in Pearl River County, and we didn't have their voting ballots for Pearl River County. We only had Lamar County people on our that came to vote. But we don't know of anyone who tried to vote and was turned away, or tried and was not given an affidavit ballot, so we can't vote. But we did hear after the election that Jennifer probably remembers in '96, we called it Help Educate Lamar People, HELP. And we had buttons, we had banners, we had ads in the paper because of, and we went to the banks and other places and they donated money, so they ran ads. Because those committees can be very favorable, they can address things, go on the radio and talk, where the schools can't. Dr. Hampton can say there's an election coming.
Correct.
But
I think there's a big difference though between 1996 and now, and that difference is social media.
Absolutely.
I think that is I mean, you know, of course, you're gonna have that person every now and then that tells you, well, I'm not on social media. Well, I get that, but 97% of the population is, maybe more than that. So I think that we use that tool more. Which is maybe difficult to do.
Committee can use that.
Well, and so, you know, and I don't know if this is the proper time, but I mean, I would like to make the suggestion or the recommendation, I guess you could say, is that we do go back after it again in November on the presidential general election. And so that now that, you know, if that's agreeable to the board, then we can start making those plans and doing those things to move forward and having that timeline and, you know, that sort of thing gives us a summer and then we can start, you know, getting things organized and be very beneficial because, let me just be honest with you, it's hard to run a school district and a campaign or election at the same time. So, I mean, it's just one of those things that we don't have a marketing department, we don't have a you know,
Advertising.
Department, you know, the budget, this, that, and the other, we don't have those things. As we're a school district, we teach kids, you know, we're focused on making sure that all our taxpayer dollars go to teaching kids. And so we don't have those departments. And so, you know, to run a, you know, referendum like we did during the school year, so that this will help get us the summertime to kind of get some things organized so that when we get the fall and we get ready to go out and get those things at the beginning of the school year, we can have some people and volunteers in place to be able to help us with those things.
Well, here's the thing, we've got to have new schools. I mean, we've all been in these schools, and so, you know, either we proceed with doing it this way, and everybody gets, or it doesn't, then somebody's going to get something. I mean, whatever we have to do. Slowly.
Much more slowly, yeah.
Somebody's going to be first.
Yeah.
And the other couple aren't going to be happy about it, but when we got to do what we got to do.
Well, my biggest worry with that is, you know, we can do all of them now for whatever it ends up, you know, 117 or under 117. 5 years from now, it may be twice as much.
217.
Right,
Yeah.
100%. And that was, Jenny and I have a mutual friend in Summerall that I talked to this week, and that was his thing. He was not super for it, but he voted for it based on that alone. He said, I mean, I know we need it. He said,
It's Econ 101, the dollar today is worth more than a dollar tomorrow.
Well, so I had a few things. So we were talking about what the feedback we heard. So we talked about lack of information. So many people said, hey, I didn't even know this was happening, right? And as to the point about social media, I do think that if you're not friends with Lamar County schools necessarily, that maybe that was a little harder to come by. And I think some of us were even a little reluctant at times to put things out because, you know, we do as a board steer away from publicly talking about things on social media in order to not open up things sometimes that are really inflammatory. And so I know I felt that way at times.
And also drawing the line of being careful, not promoting.
Not promoting, right. And so it's one thing that Steve and I have discussed is, you know, should there be a PR person that can answer some of these questions? And I think that all falls under this heading of, you know, how we move forward. So I think that's something to discuss. Town halls is something that has been brought to my attention many times. And of course, I've laughed and said, we did town halls, right? But again, what I hear is, well, if you had a kid in the school, you got that message through Parent Square. But if I didn't have a kid in the school, how did I know that the town hall was for me? So I think that's something that needs to be a focus on. Another thing that has come up more times than I can count is people believe that we're going to rezone. That with putting Oak Grove Middle School where it is, that we are rezoning everybody, and that's going to shift things. And so I think that's something that needs to be said out loud as well.
But it's not going to, that's not the intention. You know, we have 16 section land, and that's where that 16 section land is, and so we don't have to purchase land to build a school. And you know,
you should have just said that at the town hall meeting.
Right, so that, add that to your talking points over the summer. We're
Again.
not rezoning.
Again.
We're not rezoning.
Again.
So, and then of course, location of Summerall High School is something that comes up over and over, and if you would go back, I think we'll speak a little bit more about, because I know at our town hall meeting, we talked about, there were, you know, 3 pieces technically of land that could serve Summerall that we own already. So if you would speak
And
about
so,
it.
you know, the thing is when you're looking at the Summerall specifically, you know, the land, the parcel we have, first I want to clarify again, say again, it's 4 miles outside of town. It would be right at 6.5 miles between where the proposed new high school is to the elementary school. And what that allows, the main thing is to allow to spread out as the Summerall area grows, and increase in traffic and drop-offs and those things. It allows you to spread the traffic load out so that it does not just, you know,
If you've
clog
been in
up.
Summerall at 7:30, you know
Yeah, exactly,
what you're talking
and
about.
that's the main #1 concern that I have. You know, the plan is it also to spread that traffic load out is when you move the 9 through 12 out to the new high school, you move your 7th and 8th grade to some of the buildings. I mean, we're gonna renovate and do all that, the existing buildings that are good. Then you have opportunity to bring your 5th grade over from the elementary, which would decrease the load on the elementary. There's almost 1,000 kids there. You bring, you know, almost 200 kids over, and you put them at the middle school, so you have 5th and 6th grade, separate where the middle school is now, and 7th and 8th grade where the high school is now, and that helps spread out that load of the traffic, and it gives us opportunity to meet some of the future growth as well. You know, the thing is, I'm not in favor of tearing down existing buildings that while they're old, they're not like, they still have usefulness, you know, that sort of thing.
They're not a danger.
They're not a danger, you know, that sort of thing. We put a lot of lipstick on some of those bids, and they're viable buildings. I mean, our kids are in viable, safe buildings right now. You know, they're just old. There's some of that, you know, some of those buildings that we'll have to assess that are built in the 30s and 40s that are not viable, you know, that we'll need to assess and do that. But then, so when you do that, so if that's the plan, you know what I'm saying, that's the thing, you know, the concern I had conversations with the mayor of Summerall. You know, I don't know, a lot of people don't understand right now, when we had the last big rain, I talked to Coach White, he was at the field house, he couldn't flush his toilets until 10 o'clock that morning because the water in the creek had to go down before the toilets could flush. We've had several situations where in our middle school, we've had the rains, I mean, it has to become a deluge, but we'll have sewer back up into our bathrooms because the infrastructure in the city of Summerall cannot handle.
I've heard their water situation's bad.
Yes, and so I have concerns putting more load on infrastructure that's inadequate as it is now, just to be honest.
So we have 3 locations potentially in Summerall, right? We picked this one, so why did we pick that one?
Because of all those situations.
That's the reason.
Those are the reasons, because of being able to, 1, look at the traffic load, 2, being able to, the 16 section land out on Foster Road gives us enough area that we could eventually have our high school and all our athletic facilities out at that one location. And so our kids don't have to travel. They'll have to. That's one of those things we're looking at here. Well, they're gonna have to they're doing it now.
They are traveling.
They're already traveling now, but in the future, when we get the high school out there, then we can start ticking away. Yeah, ticking away. We're not gonna, the one thing is the baseball field, we're not moving that right now, but that baseball field in 10 to 15 years is not gonna look the same as it does now. Everything ages, everything has its shelf life, everything has.
Well, as we keep winning state championships, we need more space,
I
right?
can tell you right now, Purvis Summerall, if you come to that game, you're sitting in the tailgate of a truck trying to watch that game, because there is nowhere, you know.
Well, will you address Epley, the Epley Road?
Yeah,
location?
Epley Road location, that 16th section land, it is there. That's where Sportsman's Lake is. We already have a lot of leases on that, but there's no, we would have to build a road into that. It's not on a major thoroughfare, even if we're increasing the load on 589, which is bad throughout the day too.
Right.
So to me, you know, I'm not an engineer. I'm not, I know traffic patterns and dealing with school and car drop-offs and pickups and things like that for 27 years. You know, that location, because the only way to get up into that location would be if there's a worse than Foster Road in some locations, so. Anyway, so, those are in town, Sportsman Lake and now Foster Road.
I think this, of course, we sit in these meetings and we talk about and amongst each other, we're not looking 2 years from now.
Yeah.
We're looking 15, 20 years
Absolutely.
down the line.
Historically, this is a 60-year, because, Summerall High School and Purvis High School were
Right.
in the early 60s.
So
Here we are in 2024.
And I think the stakeholders are just looking at 2 years down the line, short term, where we're trying to plan for, my grandchildren.
Correct.
So I wish more folks would understand this is for, 50 years down the line.
Even though kids that are in school right now will benefit from this.
Correct.
Absolutely. I mean,
And it is a 2-year thing. I mean,
Right.
But,
And that's another really good point that you just made, is there's not a kid that doesn't benefit. Because just like he said, you're gonna open up that space immediately in elementary schools, and that's gonna happen all over the district.
Yeah, it's
And
a domino effect all the way
and you're gonna
through.
see more room everywhere, because you're gonna be able to utilize those campuses. Because again, we're not bulldozing the campuses that currently exist, and so everybody will benefit
I just
from
don't-
new space.
I just don't think our public understands what it's like to have a 30-kid elementary school classroom.
Yeah.
And
Or to have that in a, basically,
In a
in a closet or a mobile.
100%. Yeah, in a mobile classroom.
Portables.
We're heading that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're there in some.
yeah, we
We're
are.
there.
But
In
we're
places.
certainly
And
heading
we're
that
teetering.
way and everywhere. And, but like I say, those are things that I don't even know if you could ever get people to understand.
Well,
You just
that's a great
say.
point.
Until you walk a
"Here's-
mile."
Here's our numbers. This is our demographer has said that this is where our numbers are headed. And we're already showing signs of that happening. We need more space.
I think one more question I've gotten is, well, why don't you go ahead and borrow the money to do everything? And so, and I legitimately asked that question. I was like, well, what if we added another meal? And so, yeah, then you guys were telling me, this is the cap on what we can borrow. And
117 million is the cap. We're allowed by law, 15% of our assessed valuation is what we're allowed by law, and that would put us at the top, right?
I think that's a valid point to know too.
And again, that's the maximum,
Yeah, we may not even-
we're not gonna borrow.
Especially if the value of the meal keeps increasing.
And
then
the construction prices keep going down, value of it goes up, interest rates go down, all those things play. That's why it's a moving target almost, and that was why we felt like it was so important to go after it when we did here in May, so that we would have the options to be able to line all those things up to be a better value for our taxpayers, so that we can take advantage of a lower interest rate or a lower construction prices in the second.
Judy, has anybody suggested another site?
Well, that is very often a question. When people say, I don't like this, then the next question I always ask is, can you tell me another site? And the number one that always comes up is there's a 10-acre parcel right behind the cafeteria on 42 there at Oak Grove Middle School. And I actually asked Stephen about it. He said it is a declared wetlands area.
There's a ditch that runs through that does not make it a viable, because we've had Kevin Harlow's our land manager look at it.
Because I did ask. I mean, that doesn't, in my mind, that doesn't fix all of our
You
problems,
need a lot
right?
more than
Well, I was gonna say, 10 acres doesn't fit what we're talking about.
It
And
doesn't.
you said it's behind where the Oak Grove Middle School eventually?
No.
No, did I say Oak Grove? I'm sorry. So where Summerall Middle School currently
Okay.
is, where the cafeteria is, it's right beside it. I'm sorry, that was.
I was about to say, wait a second,
Backspace.
we're worried about 4
But-
miles?
No, I'm sorry,
But,
backspace.
and I'll say this too, if we were to purchase land, we were to build a new high school right there, we're still gonna have, right now, 2,100 students, cars, and all buses, and all in that area.
We still have a football field and a flood zone.
Right.
Yeah, still have a
That's
football
what I was gonna
field.
say.
You can't go to a location and have a future to build athletic facilities,
Well, that's where this conversation began. I know, we sat down one day and it was like, okay, well, we just bought this house over here that we're gonna move, like janitorial and stuff location to, and we bought this over here, and these
Well,
houses were coming up, maintenance,
maintenance,
yeah. And, physical plan, that's what I was trying to remember. And so, we're buying this, we're buying this, we're buying this, and at what point do we say, okay, we're just wasting money at some point, and we're not really accomplishing anything, so.
Band-Aid.
But those properties, if we ever need to do
We can sell them.
We can sell them. I mean, like, you know what I'm saying, like, as prices go up, it's almost like an investment.
Right.
You know.
Most of my friends from Summerall that I talked to, it was news to them that the current schools aren't on 16th section land.
Right.
I said, yes, I mean, we didn't buy all that land. We didn't choose to
But
build
yeah, that's an
schools there.
assumption, because
It's an
a lot of people
assumption
think you can only build a school on 16th section land. I've learned that through this too,
Yeah.
is that they think it has to
I
be.
mean, everything else we have.
None of the Summerall schools are on 16th section land. Oak Grove Middle's not, Longleaf is not, Bellevue's not, you know, Oak Grove Elementary, Oak Grove High School is.
And Purvis High School, that's
Purvis
why
High
they get to
School, yeah.
stay, which is also been another complaint, is why does Purvis get to move across the road?
Because it's 16th
It's
section.
16th section, and
Yeah.
there's space across the road.
There's
Nice space.
Yeah.
It's
a nice, that's right.
It's not a wetland.
And they're
It's
still
not-
there, and their athletic facilities are still there.
Infrastructure there and
Right.
not a lot of dirt work and all the things.
But again, you know, these are questions that people have, and if they're questions people have, they're questions that we need to address.
Yeah.
And we need to be able to put that stuff out. And so I do think town halls is something that we need to do, and I think that, do we need to discuss, do we need to make any type of a motion that we do a November election, not this time?
I don't know, I mean, Rick,
No, I'm not gonna do November, you got plenty of time.
okay. But that would be my recommendation, so at some point in the near future, another board meeting, we can get it on as an agenda item, and we go ahead and vote to have, would that be okay to do?
And next month will be fine.
The June board meeting, an agenda item, that would be my recommendation.
It's not like there's any time between now and then to do it as a standalone. I mean, there's not. I mean, you wouldn't have an election, you wouldn't have a bond referendum in August
No.
with a, I mean,
Well, you could, but
There's
I mean,
just
again,
a
we have
lot
to pay
of-
that money, and so this saves taxpayer monies too by putting it on the
With the
November
general
election.
election being so close to any, I say that would be.
people are about to be inundated with campaign battles. A contentious presidential election.
School board members.
Well,
And now, and then we just throw this.
Will we need to make a?
Sorry.
He keeps breaking that up.
It's really bigger on the ballot.
So, Mr. Norton, would we need to put on a ballot, or on our, agenda coming up soon if we decide to move forward with like creating these political action committees? things like
You don't
that?
create.
We don't.
So we don't
You
create?
can't
Be
do
someone,
anything.
Yeah,
volunteer,
that's not
that
us.
would be a volunteer in the community that would want to.
You could just put the word out that if there were volunteers, and what's happened in the past is that somebody has stepped up and said,
I'll take it
I'd
on.
love to.
I'll take it on, I'll take it on for Oak Grove, I'll take it on for Summerall, Purvis, Lumberton, and then they just have little meetings, and then they start with, information. And as Jeremy said, social media makes it a whole lot easier than it used to be. But you still need to touch people, because when you look at Summerall, you got to balance. If you vote again, and you have it at the same location, are you gonna get, because you're gonna have a lot more people voting, because it's presidential election. Is that something that's going to be a very big negative? As some of you know, on some of the other bond issues, things will change between the first vote and the second vote. And second vote, third vote, once passed, because some people were just very adamant, this is not it. I assume you need 50 acres or so for a school.
We have at least 80 out there also.
But if you were to buy 50 acres somewhere in Summerall,
No.
Even if it existed,
How
right?
about that?
Make a motion, no.
Yeah, but it does, I don't think it
but you gotta
exists.
Yeah.
explain to people that you're gonna be
Hard no.
spending.
I
$2
know. I mean,
million.
Kevin has
Right.
looked.
$2
Yeah.
million.
No.
Right.
Kevin has looked.
Right, because that's what people need to understand, is that the other option is that if you buy land, and you're gonna be spending a couple $1 million for that land, and you're gonna have some of the same problems if you get it real close to town. So,
I'll say this, in Summerall, I've not had anyone who sits in a car line at one of our schools say that building.
It's a bad idea.
Yeah.
yeah, so you just get your volunteers from people who are your regular volunteers, and then they form a little committee and figure out how they want to do it. There was a person that was hired by that action committee years ago to coordinate and tell them, this is how you conduct an election, this is how you get the vote out, this, and so you can take 60 days before you do this, 30 days before you do this, 15 days before you do this. And
That's from the action committee.
That's action
Right,
committee.
but that's still them doing it,
That's all action
not
committee.
us.
Where,
Okay.
again, we can only inform, we
But
can't.
now, as far as a social media campaign from the actual school district, they can't, the school
So
district
they
can
would have-
post.
we can post
You can
information.
post facts.
We can
you
post
can
information. That's right.
And verifiable this and reminders.
Yes.
You don't say, please go vote,
Yeah.
but
Or please vote yes.
please vote
You
yes.
can't say please vote yes.
Please go
Yeah,
vote.
you can say go vote.
Go
I
vote.
mean,
Do
people
your
weigh
civic
in,
duty.
But I mean, I think that we do more of that and maybe people, question those numbers and then we can have a real conversation.
Right.
Because that, I mean, that's the way that I look at it is, people are untrustworthy of government. And I've been on the school board for nine and a half years now, and I've never thought of this as a government job. But people are it's a service if they want to see our paychecks.
Yeah.
But if you, people are untrustworthy of government entities in general right now, and they're, you know, everybody's taxes just went up, everybody's insurance, the school district's insurance almost doubled. Now,
Yeah.
we don't talk about that, we don't tell the taxpayers that, we don't have a choice but to insure our structures. So everything is going up in price, and, you know, it was a bad time for everybody's taxes to go up, and then we have a bond referendum and all that. But I think that if you,
But the thing is, their taxes are going up because of property.
their property value is going up, and their
Property value is
one of
going
the
up.
main reasons it's going up is because they live in a district, one of the best school districts in the state, and that's not changing. So it's a catch-22.
I had someone that told me that they voted against it, and I heard it secondhand, they voted against it, the person they were talking with told them, said, your house value just went down more than your
That's what I
taxes
said,
going up."
That's right.
How foolish.
That's right. That's a good
Yeah,
point.
because the realtors and the bankers were the ones that donated the money in the past to promote it. Realtors, builders, bankers. Okay?
Because
They
it increases the
understand.
value of everything.
No, it creates their jobs.
Sure.
Just for existence for
live
the
here.
next 20 years.
Sure. But I mean, I think that, the school district can still do that.
Correct.
You know, on the district website, I think that, I would like to see us do more of that
Okay.
than what we did this last time. Because then, those of us that are on social media can share those posts, and hopefully it sparks conversations and questions, and maybe we, don't have so many wild stories out there, and wild ideas and misconceptions.
I do think too is that we're a victim, and I'll just bring this up because it's came to my mind. I think we're a victim of being able to downsize and create our communities. Summerall, Oak Grove, Purvis, Lumberton, and people don't understand, we're the sixth largest school district in the state. I mean, we've got over 10,500 students in our school district, you know, and it's one of those things where, you know, they see it holistically, not holistically, they see it in isolation, things, you know, that sort of thing.
And we're also the third fastest growing county in the
I've heard
state.
second too.
Second or third,
Second or
okay?
third, yeah.
So sixth largest in the state,
Yeah.
but second or third fastest growing. Yes, we need new schools.
I think one of the considerations, and I think I heard Teresa went and watched who was voting, but now you can go to the circuit clerk's office and get a roster or a roll of who voted, so you see that name and you see the age. But predominantly, people over 55 vote percentage-wise higher than people 45.
Right.
And so when you're focusing on things, a lot of it needs to be focused on those who will actually vote.
And those demographically are gonna be less likely to be on social media too, so that's another point to consider. And don't have kids in schools to get that text
Hopefully they'll have
message.
grandkids.
Well, I know, but they're not getting the text messages, that's where I was
That's right.
going with that.
That's very true.
Okay, well, anybody else have anything else on the bond issue?
I appreciate all the input, everything. Again, and, you know, this is just, and I want this to be said publicly, is that this bond issue is not me, this is not about me, this is about our kids. You know? So,
I saw on social media where we stood to make a lot of money, us, individually from this.
Really?
Yeah, that's not true either.
this is about our
Everybody told
kids.
me.
Out of hand.
And I'm not just saying my personal kids, it's about our kids in this community.
So for the next
You've got a
item-
kindergartner, so
Yeah, you've got-
it's about your kids, but
Sure.
mine won't reap the benefit, mine are all gone, you know, I mean.
Mine will just barely, probably,
Yeah.
probably
I
just
think
barely.
Catch the tail.
Lance is gonna do, the next item.
Okay.
So I'm gonna step out for that one.
Okay.
All right, it's an agenda.
Any questions?
Ms. Farmer, any questions? Mr. Carlisle?
Yes, sir.
No, sir. No, I see what's just.
Yeah.
Motion to accept as presented.
All right.
I second that
Got
motion.
a second? All in favor?
Aye. Need to bring her back for recess.
Let the minutes show that Mr. Pitchling did, exit the range.
Did you hear it?
No, I didn't hear you. Okay, so I think we are ready to make a motion for recess.
Motion.
And second, all in favor?
Aye.
And that passes unanimously. Thank y'all for your time.
Hey, how are you? Hey. Anything to sign?
Oh, I do have to say, from the last board meeting.
No.